Achievements of my life has been the ability to reach out to these luminaries in various fields and learn from their experiences and request them for conversations because I believe such conversations add a lot of value and give us the kind of education that we actually need. With this principle, I bring to you this very special episode of the One Take Show. My name is Kaustubh Srivastava, your host, and today we are in conversation with Ambassador Anil Trigunayat. Sir has previously served our country as the ambassador to Libya, Malta, and Jordan. Sir is also a distinguished fellow for Vivekananda International Foundation. And in this episode, Sir will talk about his journey as an Indian diplomat. He will also discuss a very interesting concept, the Indian medicine diplomacy, and what role does India play in this international surfacing requirement. If you like this episode, make sure you like, share, and follow the podcast so that I can reach out to more and more people with these amazing conversations. If you have any suggestions, feedbacks, make sure you reach out to me. I would absolutely love that. And ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let's jump right into the conversation with Ambassador Anil Trigunayat right here on the One Take Show. Hello, sir. Welcome to the One Take Show. I am truly blessed to have this opportunity to talk to you, and I believe every listener of mine is truly blessed to have this opportunity to listen to you. I think the kind of conversations that I get to have through this medium, that is the One Take Show, has given me an opportunity to learn and grow from the luminaries in every field. And I am to have a conversation like this is only going to add on to the value that I'm trying to convey to all my listeners and to my life personally as well. So thank you so much, sir, for taking time out for this recording today. I'm really grateful for the same.
Thank you, Kaustubh. It's a pleasure for me, and it's always a pleasure to talk to our young, bright minds because I believe that you are the future of this country, and you have the tremendous energy and dynamism that is going to move us to the next orbit. So I'm very happy to and always prefer to talk to the young colleagues and the friends. And I'm very happy to be here on the One Talk Show today. And I hope that this will be an interesting conversation for your listeners.
Thank you so much, sir. I'm 100% sure that I believe the conversation that we're going to have is going to add so much value to everyone who listens to this conversation. But before we start talking about the substantial issues that we will be discussing and we learn more and more about the same from you, I would love to know a little bit about your journey. Your career has had an everlasting impact. It has been inspiring on so many levels to so many people. And the kind of legacy that has it created in front of the entire country for all the people who aspire to be a diplomat someday will learn from it, will look up to it. So would love to know what inspired you for this service, what inspired you to serve our country, and how was the journey?
Well, thank you very much for your exposure that you have given about the kind of journey I would have probably carried on. But it has been one of the most exciting careers one can always have. I have been very, very more than satisfied, both professionally and personally. In fact, when as a young man you want to do something, for me personally, it was a lot of the thing that veered me towards it, foreign service especially, was the possibility of traveling abroad, different cultures, meeting different kind of people, learning different trades, and to be able to serve the country in the best way. And I thought that that was something that would be good, and I'm happy that I chose it. Because today also I even hold this, that foreign service is probably the best civil service, of course, in India. There are many, all kinds of services are available and you serve the nation through them. But personally for me, this has been excellent. I started my journey, of course, as you know, after serving under training and all that. My first place I went to was in Ivory Coast, in West Africa, which is now called Cote d'Ivoire. And it was like the Paris of Africa because it used to be a French colony at one time. Now, there are a lot of things that you learn in new places when you go for the first time. And I was fortunate because I was number 2 in the embassy. As you know, in the embassy, the ambassador heads the organization. And under him, there are many officers who deal with different kind of things. So right. We were 2 diplomats, ambassador and myself. And therefore, I was number 2. And being in number 2, it always gives you a great opportunity to interact with
Right.
a lot of things, and you tend to do everything in the embassy that is required. In a bigger embassy, what happens is that you deal with different kinds of work. You deal with political work, cultural work, education, consular visa, economic work, and military, and all kinds of things, intelligence. Everything is worked by you. But at the same time, when you are working in a smaller embassy, you tend to have everything. So therefore, your experience becomes far more. I
Right.
was fortunate also because my ambassador left,
Mm-hmm.
and I became charge d'affaires, as we call it, in charge of the embassy for over a 2 year period. So for
Right.
a young person to have that kind of exposure was far more useful. From there, I went to Bangladesh,
Mm-hmm.
and from Bangladesh, I went to Mongolia to New York, and after New York, I came back to Delhi, and I worked in Ministry of External Affairs, and then again I went to Russia, and from Russia, I went to Sweden, then to Nigeria, and came back to Delhi, worked here for some time, and then I again went to Russia second time as a deputy chief of mission in the rank of ambassador. And from there, I went as an ambassador to Libya, and from there on, ambassador Malta, and also ambassador to Jordan, whereafter I retired in 2016. Now, all these postings have been challenging in one way and great for me personally, because see, the job of a diplomat is you can go to many countries where there's nothing much to do and you can enjoy, unless there is a challenge, unless there is something, a concrete difference you can make in things. I think that you don't really enjoy. That's called the professional satisfaction. For example, if some company is going to invest, let's say in Mexico, and in New York, I'm able to bring them back into India
Right.
rather than going to Mexico or South Korea or elsewhere, that
Mm-hmm.
gives you a personal satisfaction. That kind of. If you help an Indian in distress, it gives you a personal satisfaction that you
Right.
have helped another fellow countryman. And if you are able to help people in that country, it gives you greater, uh, this is the part of your job satisfaction, I would say, and serving the national interest in the process. So I overall, I think that I have been fortunate to have gone to very difficult stations, but still I enjoyed every bit of it. And I think that it was personally for me, it has been a very rewarding experience.
Right. So I believe this is the kind of inspiration that anyone who ever even dreams of serving our nation the way you have would kind of like want to attach themselves to or want to learn from. But very specifically, I would like to ask you, because I believe you can answer this question much better than what I can even perceive or attempt at somehow understanding it. Is that if someone like me or a fresh aspirant who aims to becoming a diplomat someday or tries at their hand at their service, what suggestion would you have for them? Like some sort of tips and tricks, some strategies that you have used during this.
Well, each one has to evolve its one's own strategy. The most important thing, in my view, is because clearing the written exam is the first step in the two steps that it is. So, for that, there is no shortcut. You have to work hard, have as expansive a knowledge as you can have about various things. Your principal subjects that you're going to take, you must really master them well, and master not in the sense the big theories and everything, but the very small kind of details very often that we miss out on it. Being a science student, actually, all through, what gave me a little good thing, I was not very good in writing long essays of things, which is a social subject generally people take their need to be. And you are a lawyer, so you obviously know the precision is the most important. So if somehow you can hit the nail on the right issues when the question is being asked, then you have every chance and every possibility of cracking it. There is no hard and fast rule except labor, hard work, and hard work. And of course, keeping your eyes and ears open to current events. What are they doing? How they are impacting on us? How they're impacting globally? And uh, they come handy anywhere, because then you can use in any format or any setting while you are answering a question. So it does not harm to read newspapers, read good magazines, watch meaningful TV programs. That helps. And also, you must master your subject. That's most important. And communication is a great skill one should acquire. you should be able to communicate what you want to say rather than trying to copy what you've read. So we say that there are a lot of people are literates, but few are educated. So therefore, it
Right.
is extremely important to imbibe and then be able to communicate effectively. And that's what is the difference, I believe, in those who are able to crack the exam and those who unfortunately are not able to do so. So, in
Right.
my view, that is something. Of course, luck plays a great role very often. Sometimes the questions you are very good at come and you do well. That is also those kind of cases. And then for the personality test or the interview, there again, it will count a lot on your knowledge of subjects and communication skills.
Right, right, sir. As in, this is probably a very important advice for anyone who even thinks of attempting the civil services examination. As in, hard work and a very holistic knowledge is extremely important and indispensable for someone who is trying to attempt this examination. A little bit of an extension before we move on to the further stages of the conversation is, if someone aspires to serve our country through diplomacy or wants to enter through into the service that you have served, sir, what advice would you have? Do you have any experience that has, in the early stages of your career, would have given you an impression and probably would have shifted or changed in the later stages, or some evolution of that sort?
No, the thing is that I mean, if you want to get into the foreign service, you have to give it as first option, right? So
Right,
that is
right.
something that happens these days. Foreign service, unfortunately, not the first option for people for various reasons.
Mm-hmm.
The civil services themselves have gone down tremendously because of various reasons
Mm-hmm.
in the public esteem. And I will blame them only on civil servants and nobody else. I mean, you see, you are the continuum of an
Mm-hmm.
administration of a country. Now, the moment you put your personal interest
Mm-hmm.
before the national interest or the job that you've been assigned to, and I'm referring to a little bit of hobnobbing with the politicians. They
Mm-hmm.
are the political masters. They have been sent by the people as uh, public servants.
Mm-hmm.
So when you start doing that, then you tend to compromise, and that is where the whole objective, your whole uh, mission. But as a young person, when you are starting, you are obviously driven by a lot of dynamism. Like in
Right,
brief, I had also joined the customs department briefly for about 6 7 months, but then I left it. Uh, but what was driving me that those days was in 1970s, 80s, if you remember, we had, you may have heard, of course, I remember, we used to have a lot of smugglers in Bombay and elsewhere and all that. So I was driven as a young man by the thing, okay, I'm going to, decimate these smugglers somehow. But when I arrived there, I found that that was the last thing you would do. You actually get embroiled in so many things, and corruption is not something that is not known there. But so this is what changes you. I couldn't bring myself to at that stage change, so I moved on, and then I'm very happy with what I did, and I chose the foreign service, and I'm glad that I was part of it, and it has given me. But the only thing I would say is you must contemplate, introspect what you really want to do in life, because I would like to tell you a difference between IAS and IFS foreign service. That is, in IAS where you wield power, right? And I hope for positive.
mm-hmm.
In foreign service, actually, you wield authority.
Mm-hmm.
When you are talking abroad, you're talking on behalf of 1.3 billion people or a country as great as India is.
Mm-hmm.
So that gives you a very different kind of a high
Mm-hmm.
compared to other things. Not to say that the other job is equally important or
Mm-hmm.
probably more important, because in building a stronger India, the role can be exemplary. So therefore, the people in the IAS, IPS, income tax, and other services, revenue services, they are extremely important, their role, because that's what the project for gives us a possibility of projecting India abroad. And India has arrived for many reasons, as you are seeing that it is counted. It was always counted as a great country. Today, it is counted as the third largest economy, country with great potential and good leadership at the moment.
Right, sir. And this is probably one of the most important advices. A very strong sense of introspection will really help a lot of people when it comes to making choices, so as to we can have a career that possibly is somehow close to the kind of legacy that you have created for us, but get on the same path and follow your footsteps. This brings me to a rather constructive, sort of a substantial portion of our conversation today. This is very interesting because the current situations, the COVID-19 pandemic, has created a lot of havoc across the world. And it is changing dynamics across the world when it comes to global supply chain or stuff that is influencing the importance of certain countries in certain fields and foreign relations. There's a very specific area that I believe you have also worked with, and I've read an article on the same, which was authored by you, which talks about the India's medicine diplomacy and how exactly is India finding itself in a very strong position with that respect. So I would love to know a little bit more about this, sir. Like, what exactly is India's position in India's medicine diplomacy?
Yeah, Kaustubh, the thing is that the diplomacy is an ongoing process. And this is a part of software, soft power. Now we are facing this unprecedented situation, which is an extremely difficult for the whole world. More than 185, 88 countries are suffering currently with this COVID impact. What we have seen in this, the China, which is the number 2 power in the world and aims to be number 1 after the US, has hidden very important information for several weeks. And that the people continue to travel to Wuhan and other places. And the Chinese continue to travel to different parts of the world. That led to the spread of the virus. And that has been the biggest issue between the West and the. But this is not the only issue. Between the US and China, there have been an ongoing competition. There have been trade wars ever since President Trump has come. Because, see, whenever there is a dynamic imbalance, which needs to be balanced out between the two. Earlier, we used to have a Cold War when we had the Soviet Union and the Western countries on the other side, and they kept on balancing. Now, today, China is there, which is a rising power. So this has created a very major problem. But what it has shown, the virus, that the whole world's total intelligence that it has gathered over the years, the knowledge it has gathered over the years, the kind of edifice we have created over the years, falls for nothing today. Everybody is helpless in the wake of this virus. It has become a great leveler, so to say. And most countries have tried to first deny it, that it existed, and then just for political reasons, I guess, to keep that people are not scared or something like that. A lot of lockdowns have happened. So it has created a greater role for the governments. But the governments have not really come up to their expectations of the people. That's why it's continuing to grow even today. It is multiplying, except for some countries. And I would name 3 countries. One country is New Zealand, which has done very well. The second country is Taiwan, and the third country, I would say, Germany. And you will be surprised to know all these 3 countries are actually led by women leaders. And they have done very well. The countries which are number 1 today, for example, the United States, has become number 1 even in the COVID.
Right.
The Brazil, where they continue to defy that there is anything, it's a simple flu, they dismissed it, today is become number 2 and likely to replace the US.
Right.
This is the problem when the challenge is not taken. We understand that there is no cure for it as of now. There is no vaccine at the moment for now. The world is working on it, different agencies, different labs, research is being done. But this also exposes one very thing about all the countries in the world, I would say, that nobody has invested in the most important aspect of its citizenry. For example, health is wealth, we always used to say. But the very little of the budgetary allocations have been made for the health, keeping the healthcare of the people. So this is what has been exposed badly. I would hope that because of this particular challenge that we are facing, and once we get out of it, and it will be easy, because it's also impacting our economies in a big way. Most of the world is in global recession. So we will at least we'll try to be self-sufficient, like we are keeping 90 days of oil reserves. We should have, of course, you cannot predict that there is going to be a vaccine for every goddamn thing. We have still not created the vaccine for HIV. There we have not still eradicated a lot of things. Virus, we are going to live with it. But what is it teaching you? It is teaching you that you require an international effort,
Mhm.
that the whole world has to be together in it, that the international solidarity is the must. While the countries are closing their borders, are closing their thought processes, even like the immigration and the jobs and everything is going to be impacted in a very negatively. It is also important that we all work together to get this cure. So
Mhm.
that is why what has happened in India, what is done. When it was known that hydroxychloroquine may probably provide some kind of a preventive cure for it, India had put a ban on it, export of paracetamol and hydroxychloroquine. But
Mhm.
once they saw that our requirements are being met, we
Mhm.
started supplying it to large number of countries. And I think as of last week, the probably 150 countries have been supplied with this by India, either by sale or by donations or gifts to me to the people. Mostly the developing countries, and not only developing countries, but even the developed countries like the US, the UK, others. And the President Trump has said that he is surviving because of the hydroxychloroquine. And the Brazilian president who wanted it, he says it's like a Sanjeevani Booty. And he quoted Ramayana in his letter to Prime Minister Modi, Israeli Prime Minister. So the countries that are developing vaccines, India is also. But this is one aspect of India's share and care attitude that we have. And it is not only from now. From 1964, India started on a program called ITEC, Indian Technical and Economic Cooperation, under which we started sharing what we have with 151 countries. And we train them across 200 training programs. We are giving grants to them. We are setting up projects for them. For example, we have this Pan-African e-network project, which was started after 2004 when President Kalam, who was a scientist as well as President of India, visionary leader, he proposed that all the African countries, we should connect through our satellites and the cables, like fiber optic. So, so that there are three things that can be taken care of, five rather. One is telemedicine. So that is coming very handy now. The second is education. So the five universities in India, top universities, and five universities in each country. So the professors exchange notes and they give lectures. Likewise, the medical treatment is done. Then e-governance. That was another thing. Then there was something for the a hotline for all the leaders to that. So this was all created and it was funded by India totally. It has been upgraded by the current government very recently, and now they're going to train more than 4,000 people. This has also been used in helping African countries. What we have done is we have tried to train them, their health professionals, by the Indian professionals. So India, I believe, soft power reaction is India's forte, and we are supplying billions of dollars worth of assistance to various countries who want it, and they are across Africa, across Europe, across Asia. It's all continents, Latin America. So India, that is something. So the medicine diplomacy, as I call it, is not to show off, but is to try to alleviate the suffering of the people to the extent India can. And that's what we hope, that whenever the vaccine is developed, it will become a global common, so that it is for everyone. It is not that only the some companies which are going to develop this are going to hog all the profits, and it does not become a commercial proposal rather than it remains a humanitarian proposal, because this is a global challenge, and India can lead in this effort. Another thing I would like to say is that we are very good in called Pharmacy of India. We produce a lot of bulk drugs and supply to rest. We need to start working. We are also a vaccination nation. We have developed a lot of vaccines, but we need to give more attention to our R&D and science and technology work. Use more artificial intelligence tools to find, so that there are mechanisms whereby you are warned rather than you have to react, so that you can take a proactive measure. And I think the world is not going to be the same, neither politically, nor internationally, nor economically, nor internally. There is going to be a certain change in our lifestyles. There is going to be a certain change in the way we react and work with the other. For example, we are talking digitally today, right? So I am doing a lot of webinars like this with it, or TV interviews. This is digital now. this is going to be the way of life. They are moving, and is probably far more productive in the sense. At the same time, diplomacy has become digital. If you remember that, as soon as it happened, Prime Minister Modi took the initiative to invite all the SAARC countries, right, leaders, and discuss with them, including with Pakistan. That is a difficult choice. But at the same time, and India gave almost $10 million for this COVID fund and started training people online for those countries. Then it helped the Saudi Arabia, nudged them rather, to hold the G20 summit, which is G20 is almost two-thirds of the world global GDP. They represent all top countries in the world. They are there. And therefore, India ensured that the focus of this remains there. And that is why today you have almost 100 vaccines that are being developed, or 100 efforts are being done. India is also working together with some companies and trying to develop the vaccine or produce it at least. So hopefully we'll be able to meet this challenge. But this challenge, first time in this century it has happened. Last one was Spanish plague 100 years ago. And this should teach us, the older generation, and the newer generation, as to what should be our priorities and responsibilities.
Right, sir. I believe this is a very important point where the kind of medicine diplomacy, as you term it, will give India the kind of an edge, or sort of a situation that is being created to give a very holistic understanding as to how this entire system, the flow is changing, and rapidly India is also adapting, and how a country like India actually can benefit from this medicine diplomacy, as it is already benefiting from it, and what all things that we should keep in mind while we move forward with it. The last question, sir, before we come to the conclusion of this conversation is, which is, I believe, a rather general question. When we talk about COVID-19 and the pandemic in general is changing the foreign relations and the situations all across the world. What exactly, in your opinion, can India as a state do to improve or solidify its position as far as the global leadership is concerned? We see that there is a slight bit of a lacuna as far as leadership is concerned. United States is backing off the kind of economic nationalism that is now being portrayed by United States. China is now losing credibility because of the disease. So the lacuna, how exactly can India strategize in order to improve its chances for this situation?
That's a very good question, actually, and everybody is trying to find the answer to it. The thing is that we need to have a realistic understanding of the thing. There are two things: realism and idealism. Ideally, I would like India to be number one and steer the course of the world. But how India can help? India has arrived. We are the third largest economy in terms of purchasing power parity, and might move to second when China moves up. China has discredited itself a great deal, and not only by the COVID, but also by certain practices which are not transparent. Secondly, that has been further decimated by their aggressive diplomacy, which we call wolf warrior diplomacy, which has not done them any good. But they are continuing to flex their muscles. So they are trying to show off that we matter, that we are there. They have made a mistake. They could have acknowledged this mistake, and they've probably been saved of this problem. But they continue to take this is the Chinese way of doing things. Of course, as a civilizational country, and it's very powerful, very strong country. It cannot be. It'll remain there. Nothing is going to happen, because today all the global supply chains, value chains, everything emanates from China. Largest number of biggest multinational companies are present there. Everything is produced in that country. Right. India, for example, we import 70% of our APIs from China in the pharma industry. So if that does not work, China remains our second largest trade partner, and they are even investments, even though we have tried to curtail them. USA, on the other hand, has definitely lost its leadership position, moral leadership. Militarily, it remains as strong as it was. It can decimate the world over many times. But that alone cannot give you the leadership in the world. So therefore, the US economy remains there. Dollar is their currency. They can print as much as they want. They can do anything. So they can dictate to the world today. They are still in that position. But hopefully, their leadership will become a little more responsible. They are trying to monetize everything. The worst thing that they have done is And I'm saying all these worst things because that is your opportunity to do
Mhm.
things right. And the first
Mhm.
thing that America has done under this current administration is they have tried to decimate all the multilateral organizations,
Right.
whether it is World Trade Organization, whether it is WHO or the UNICEF or the UN organization itself. They look at these organizations are a major tool of their foreign policy objectives,
Mhm.
right? Or at any given time. So if it does not serve that particular objective, and they are one of the largest contributors to it because it served their purpose. Secondly, India this time is going to be elected on June 17th, actually, going to be elected to the UN permanent, non-permanent seat. And
Mhm.
India wants to be on the UN permanent, have a permanent seat at
Mhm.
the UN Security Council, which we are
Mhm.
working on. So this is our opportunity to highlight all these problems. We do not have the funds or the money of that kind which we can throw at things.
Mhm.
This is a time when we can try to get into leadership positions in Africa, for example,
Mhm.
or develop closer ties with Latin America. We already have strategic ties with the United States. We
Mhm.
cannot, whatever be with China, we are having currently a lot of problems on the border, but they are trying to resolve these differences. But we have to learn to live the how we are going to respond to China's aggression,
Right. Right.
whether it is going to be a definitive, decisive one, or we are going to have a diplomatic solution. Every time it happens, we try to, or there's, they are conveying a message. Now that message, we got it very loud and clear, but India is giving it back also because it's not the India of 60. So ASEAN is like we have certain policies like Look East policy that is
Mhm.
towards ASEAN. They are the countries with whom we should try to be more closer because they are nearer to us. Our Look West policy toward West Asia, we are hugely dependent on West Asia for our oil supplies, for our diaspora dividend, for our energy security, for our trade. So we need
Mhm.
to develop more closer ties. Fortunately, we are doing that.
Mhm.
Prime Minister Modi has personally done the greatest service. In my view, the foreign policy success of this government is in West Asia.
Mhm.
We have excellent personal relations Prime Minister Modi has with most of the leaders. And
Mhm.
that's what is seen in the day-to-day outcomes that we witness. Israel, we have equally good relations. But there will be a time when you want to become a big power, then you have to make choices. And the choices can be difficult. And you should be able to bear the cost of a particular choice that you make. So, India, in my view, given its immense soft power, especially in the IT industry, as, as the world moves into the artificial intelligence driven industrial revolution 4.0, India has much more in its arsenal to be able to help. We have the the dividend, we democratic dividend as well as the diaspora dividend. We have the population dividend with us. We have huge market. So we have everything that comes. The only thing we need to do is clear, concise, outright standard policy formulations, decisive action on issues that are there. I don't know, whatever it is, because see, every uh, leader is only judged after by the history. So that'll be different. But at the given time, under the given circumstances, with the given set of parameters, you have to take that decision, and that decision has to be in consonance with what we want India to be, what kind of a role we want to play in the world today. And India's role only can be a balancing role. It can be a role which can moderate the unnecessary and avoidable. One of the biggest challenges that is facing the world is today climate change. That's where India can take the leadership. Mr. Modi has done something amazing by with France by trying to create International Solar Agency, for example, ISA, in which several, uh, I mean, 60, 70, 80, I don't know how many countries today are the members of that. That's kind of initiative that India has taken, which is welcomed by everybody. India is looked at as a benign power and a country with whom it can be trusted, which has no designs on anybody's territory, but it only wants to serve its own, keep itself safe, and serve its own national interests and the global interests. We Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam, I have always said, that is one of the basic premises on which our foreign policy and interactive engagements are predicated. So I would say that we have a great future, and the future comes from our people like you. So I hope. that the youth will rise to the occasion, not by these politicians or the bureaucrats.
Hmm.
You have to be part of the drive and the change as they say.
Right.
And then only we can have it done. Think high. They always say when you aim higher, you can at least hit at your side. So we must aim higher always. And to play a
Right.
greater role, commensurate with our capacity. It's very, you see, the worst thing that can be for any country, especially in India's case, you say something and you don't do it. You promise something and you don't deliver it. And that is when you lose your credibility, right? And the other countries come and fill in that gap. So that's where we have to be cautious. Um, and it's not, and we should not believe in a zero sum game. Somebody else is your gain in the short term. The long term, you can only be trusted. If we stand by principles. We do have principles. And we
Right.
must continue to do. That's what I think.
Right, sir. So I believe this was a very comprehensive understanding from your first-hand experience as to how exactly can India as a nation strategize in situations like this in order to solidify our situation, our position, especially in the world diplomacy and the foreign
And it'll
relations.
depend, it'll depend on how strong economically we are.
Yes,
The
yes, sir.
soonest we come out of this current ras,
Mm-hmm.
the better it is for us.
Yes, right, sir. Well, that is, I believe, so one of the most important characteristics, that economic growth is indispensable as far as solidifying our situation is concerned. Well, thank you so much, sir. I believe this conversation has given us an opportunity to learn about all of these issues, especially about when we talk about the foreign policy of India or the position of India, especially in the world diplomacy is concerned, from someone who has experienced this firsthand and over so many years with such an illustrious career. Learning about your journey, learning about your experiences, and what exactly are your tips and tricks and your suggestions for the fresh aspirants. I believe every minute of this video has added so much value to the kind of to the learnings of every person who will tune into this podcast. Thank you so much, sir. I am blessed to have this opportunity. I had a wonderful time. I hope you had a good time too.
Thank you, Kaustubh. It has been a pleasure, very enlightening listening to your questions. The questions are what make your answers worthwhile. But I wish you all the very best and to all your listeners and make India great. Not again, but we are already great, but make India greater.
Well, I
Thank you
believe,
once again. Namaste.
right, sir. I believe that is the mantra. I'm really grateful, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you.